boys and girls, it's Mr. McMahon, and I would like to read Little Mouse's Painting. And it's written by Diane Volkstein, and the pictures are by Mary Jane Begin. Here's our title page, Little Mouse's Painting. There's a song that goes with it. I'm not going to sing it. I can read it as a poem. Little Mouse's Painting. I see a flower, you see a tree. I see you and you see me. We see what we want to see in Little Mouse's painting. Little Mouse lived in her own pretty house under the earth. She had a sweet-smelling bed made of pine wood and honeysuckle vines, a small braided rug, and a painting by her grandmother that hung on the wall over the cupboard. Every day, Little Mouse ate her breakfast of berries and nuts, made her bed, and went up the stairs to visit her friends. Bear, Squirrel, and Porcupine were Little Mouse's friends. Some days she picked berries and nuts with Bear. Ho, ho, Bear would shout whenever he found a particularly fine patch of berries. Ah, ah, he would sigh as he happily ate them. Some days Little Mouse was invited to Squirrel's treehouse and had tea and crackers and flowers. Squirrel loved flowers. Sometimes he arranged them carefully in acorn cups, and sometimes he ate them. Other days, Little Mouse went for long walks with Porcupine. Porcupine never walked in a straight line, but wandered from one side of the path to the other. She'd often stop to look at something closely and say, "Oh, look at that stone. Just look at that stone." Or, "Look at that cloud. Just look at that cloud." Then Little Mouse would also pause and examine the stone or quietly stare at the cloud. But one evening, even though she liked to see her friends, Little Mouse decided she would do something by herself. She decided she would make a painting. The next morning, Little Mouse set up her grandmother's easel near a blueberry bush and began to paint. The sun shone on her. She made long, thin strokes. She made short, thick strokes. She painted all morning, singing as she worked, and only stopped from time to time for a snack of berries. By afternoon, her painting was finished. As she was looking at it, she heard thump, thump, thump. It was Bear. Little Mouse hid behind a tree. "Ho, ho," cried Bear. "That's a beautiful painting. A bear must have painted it." "No," cried Little Mouse, coming over from behind the tree. "I did." "You?" asked Bear, surprised. "Yes, me." "Well, I like the bear in the middle of the painting." "It's not a bear, it's a blueberry bush." "It's a bear. It's a blueberry bush." "Where?" cried Squirrel from his tree. Squirrel looked from Bear to the painting and said, "What bear? What berry? That's a squirrel." "Where? What squirrel?" cried Bear and Little Mouse together. Squirrel pointed to the bottom of the painting. "No," said Little Mouse, shaking her head. "That's a daisy." "A daisy? That's a squirrel. It's a daisy." "Stop!" shouted Bear. "Let's go see Porcupine. She's sure to know." Bear thumped along carrying the easel. Squirrel raced ahead with the paintbrushes, and Little Mouse went the slowest, for she was holding the painting. When they arrived at Porcupine's house, Bear called, "Porcupine, please come out. We have something important to show you." Porcupine came out of her house and saw Bear, Squirrel, and Little Mouse staring at a painting which they had placed under an elm tree. She stared too. Then she said, "Look at that porcupine. Just look at that porcupine." "What porcupine? Where?" cried Squirrel, Bear, and Little Mouse. "There," Porcupine said, pointing to the top of the painting. "No, no," the others shouted. "That's a bear. That's a squirrel." "No, no," Little Mouse cried, but no one paid any attention to her. So she said to the elm, "Perhaps you would like to know what I think." "Yes, good. Then I'll tell you. The sun is at the top, the blueberry bush is in the middle, and the daisy with the leaf is at the bottom." "I know. How do I know?" "I know because I painted it." "Well, now," said Porcupine, "I think I'll take a closer look." Porcupine went up very close to the painting. "Look," she cried. Squirrel went up very close to the painting. A flower and a leaf. "How yummy," he said. Then Bear went up to the painting. "Ho, ho," he shouted. "The blueberry bush. I see the blueberry bush. From close up, I can see the blueberry bush." "And I can see the sun's rays," cried Porcupine. "You know, I think the blueberry bush looks a lot like you, Bear." Sighed Bear, quite pleased. "It's a beautiful painting," said Squirrel. "Leave it here for us to look at," said Porcupine. Little Mouse left her painting on the easel all day. But when the stars came out, she rolled it up, picked up her grandmother's easel, and carried the painting and the easel and the paintbrushes to her house. Little Mouse hung the painting on the wall opposite her bed. She sat on her bed and looked at the painting. She walked around the room and looked at it from many different places. She sat on her rug. She jumped up onto her cupboard. She sat on her bed again. Then she said, "Bear is right. When I sit on my bed far from the painting, the blueberry bush looks like a bear. But when I am very close to the painting, the blueberry bush looks just like the blueberry bush." Little Mouse ate her supper of berries and nuts. She drank a glass of water and tucked herself into bed. From the bed, she looked at the painting of Bear, Squirrel, and Porcupine. Then she closed her eyes, smiled happily, and said, "Good night, Squirrel. Good night, Porcupine. Good night, Bear. Good night, my friends. I'm glad you're all in my painting." And Little Mouse fell asleep. I'm going to try to bring it a little closer, and hopefully I have it right where you can see the painting. There it is right in the middle. Soon she began to dream. And in her dream she saw clouds, trees, and stones, all of which looked a little like Bear, Squirrel, Porcupine, and Little Mouse. And that's Little Mouse's painting. Thank you guys very much for listening, and I'll see you next time.